أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First of all, I'd like to welcome you all to the second real talk discussion based on sectarianism. As you all probably know, the title of this talk is Living with Division, Reconciling Sectarian Beliefs for the Youth. In this day and age, there are many different people with different beliefs, and it's important to know how to react in a situation where someone has different beliefs to you. The aim of this discussion is to show you how to best approach such a situation. The speaker today was supposed to be Sheikh Ahsan Hanif, but unfortunately he hurt his back today and he has been replaced with Sheikh Aqil Mahmood, who is a graduate from the University of Medina and has since been involved in various da'wah activities here at Green Lane Masjid. Before I hand over to him to introduce the topic, I'd like to impress upon you all that this is not a formal lecture, so don't be shy and make sure to get involved. With that, I'll pass over to Sheikh Aqil.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen nabiyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. So as the brother mentioned, this event that's taking place, this real talk, Living with Division, the purpose behind it isn't that I'm going to sit here, I'm going to talk for like an hour and a half, and you guys are just going to sit there. It's going to be the other way around today. So I'm not going to say anything, I'm going to say very little, and you guys are going to do all the talking, inshallah. So what we want is to get your views and to get your opinions on these topics that we're going to be discussing, and those questions that you can see on the board in front of you, those topics and those questions, and we want you to answer those questions simply so that we have a better idea, okay, of what the students are thinking, what they're going through, what issues they may have, what kind of problems they may be going through, what's on their mind, what their opinions are basically. Because before you can solve a problem, before you can solve an issue, before you can solve any type of problem that anyone may be having, you have to know what the problem is. You have to identify the problem before you can solve it. So I might sit here and talk about something specific, but it might have nothing to do with your concerns. It might not have anything to do with the problems that you're going through, with the things that are on your mind. Okay, so this is the whole point of today's event. The questions we're going to be asking you, we want you to work together, work in groups, and go over these questions, discuss them amongst yourself, and then I'll listen, and the rest of us will listen and see what your suggestions are, what kind of answers you come up with, what kind of comments you'll have over these specific questions. So inshallah, without delaying it any further, we'll go through the first question. And the first question is, what do you understand by sectarian division in Islam? What do you understand by sectarian division in Islam? So what I want you to do is, maybe in your rows, get together, or in any type of groups of 5 or groups of 4, or however you want to do it, get together amongst yourselves in a group and discuss this question. Discuss this question. So that if the sisters can get together, if the brothers can get together, okay, in groups, small groups, and talk about what you understand by sectarian division in Islam. So I'll give you 5 minutes for this, and then I'll listen to what you have to say and what your opinions are, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. So if you can get into your groups and discuss this question. What do you understand by sectarian division in Islam? Okay, so inshallah what we'll do is, if every group can pick a spokesman, okay, who'll speak for the rest of the group, and the most vocal one out of the group, I'm sure there's lots of vocal brothers who have a lot to say. So inshallah, and the sisters as well, if they can do the same thing. So we start with the sisters, inshallah. What do you understand by sectarian division in Islam? So just your ideas, your opinions, your suggestions.
We all have the same belief that Allah is one.
Okay. Okay, from the brothers?
There's a major misinterpretation of the Hadith in Quran in 26. Like say for example, there's a specific ayah that says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has hands. People have hands, but a lot of people they say it's power. They take these metaphorical statements literally, something like that.
Okay, so it's the way that the Quranic texts and the traditions of the Prophet ﷺ are interpreted, and that's what causes sectarian differences. Okay, that's what causes sectarian division. Okay, anything else? Anything else from that group?
Innovations such as al-maghrib.
Okay. Okay. All right, that's good. That's good. That's what we want. All right, Jade. Okay, anything else? Okay.
We thought in general terms, apart from being specific, we thought it's just people that have Aqidah to the main subset, and they start using other aspects like they like to try to be too much and too logical about things and take things to a different level.
Okay, so the main thing is basically Aqidah. It's a difference in Aqidah.
Not fiqh.
Okay, not fiqh. Okay. Okay, good. Next group. Anyone? Come on, someone needs to be brave and just go for it. How many more groups have we got at the back? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Okay, so yeah, anyone else?
The Prophet ﷺ told us about how many sects there will be. There will be 73, and all of them will be in hellfire except one. Islam tells us you have to hold on to
Okay. Yeah.
That's why some people follow the Sunnah and take from other people.
I'm sorry, you have to speak up, I can't hear you properly.
It's bad because when sect coming in the deal, that's why some Muslims follow Rasul Sunnah and take their deen from other people.
Okay, so you take your deen from like the wrong types of people. Okay. Anybody else? From the back? Anyone from the back?
Separating yourself out based on belief.
Say that again?
Separating yourself out based on belief, creating an exclusive group.
Okay, so you end up creating an exclusive group. You separate yourself from others. Okay, so you deliberately, a person does that deliberately. He takes himself away from a specific group, makes his only circle, makes his only group.
Based on his interpretation.
Okay, based on his interpretation. Okay, and what he understands. Okay. Okay, that's good. Anybody else?
Sectarianism can be dangerous for some Muslims while living in certain parts of the world. It means they can face like death over it. So when you're dealing with it, you're dealing with some people who are taking it to an extreme, whereas they're killing people off from other sects. And that's like the case in a lot of Muslim countries, and wars and stuff over it. So even though it's all founded from difference in knowledge, now it's much more not just the case that if he doesn't believe in what I believe in, I'll kill him if he believes in something different.
Yeah, so it leads to sectarian violence, basically. Yeah. Okay, Jade.
Historically, like different interpretations of Islam, like stories of Islam, people like think of them in different ways, based on its beliefs.
Okay. Okay, good. Anybody else? Anything else? What you understand by sectarian division in Islam?
The difference is more than trivial. It's more than just a difference in faith. There's something more substantial to it. It's enough to make you dislike the other party.
Okay. Yeah.
People don't have a proper understanding of belief.
Okay.
Deviation in the original message, but due to time passing by over and over, so people who weren't actually around certain voice companions, and they came to their own understanding of ignorance or culture or whatever other external factors.
Okay, so external factors, because of external factors, it influences and it negatively influences a person's sort of beliefs and his ideology. Okay. Anybody else? Anyone? Anything else from the sisters? Yeah. Okay. So a lot of sects reintroduced idol worship.
A lot of people going to extremes to follow the sects, and so become angry with people that follow the sects, even though they might not be aware of the reasons why they believe what they believe. They might be ignorant, and so they might just be experiencing this sort of dislike for no reason, even though they're ignorant.
Okay, so a person might be from a different sect than another individual, and because he's from that sect, okay, you end up hating that person. Just because he's from that sect, even though you might not fully understand what his, ideology is, what his beliefs are. Okay, good. Yeah.
If it happens in Islam, it's following the same path that led the other religions, like the people of the book, to their religion coming corrupt, because they separated a lot. And then if people are doing that, they basically follow this path that led them to have their religion and their religion.
So you're falling into the same traps that, for example, the Jews fell into and the Christians fell into. Okay, good. Anything else? Sorry? Say that again? Okay, so the Khawarij were the first sect in Islam. That's good. Okay, so that's good. So what you understand by sectarian division in Islam. So the second question that we're going to be discussing is, in what instances, if ever, do you think such division is acceptable? In what instances, if ever, do you think such divisions, sectarian divisions we're talking about, in what instances, if ever, do you think sectarian division, such division is acceptable? So I'll give you another 5 minutes, inshallah, and then we'll see what everyone has. Okay, I can see, mashallah, everyone's in very deep discussions with regards to this question. So I'm expecting some interesting answers. What we've done is we put a mic down. So the sisters, there's a mic for you over there. If you can just try to drag it as far back as you can. And for the brothers, there's a mic over there. So anybody who wants to say anything, wants to, has something to say, you can use the mic. I don't know how far the mic's going to be able to go. So you might have to just make your way to the mic if there's anything that you want to say, or if there's any sort of answer to the question that we've given. So, in what instances, if ever, do you think such division is acceptable? Start with the sisters, inshallah. I think you have to put the mic on, inshallah.
We think that there should never be a division in Islam anyway. We should all stay united together as an ummah. But if there was an instance, for example, if a sect did do innovation, all we can do is just remind them and make them aware of what they're doing. And then if they don't listen, then leave it to the scholars. But we should try our best to try and keep united, because we should be an ummah in Islam.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay. Brothers, if you can make your way to the front, to the mic, inshallah. Don't be afraid. Sonia, mic. You're in the hot seat now, so you have to be careful. I'm only joking. Go on.
Anything that has to do with Aqidah or Tawheed, it should be acceptable to divide, and that affects the main core of the belief.
Okay, so it should only be acceptable if it's an issue that's to do with Aqidah or Tawheed. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? Sorry?
It shouldn't be.
Okay, so with regards to issues with Aqidah, it shouldn't be acceptable. Okay, okay. The division should be acceptable. The division shouldn't be acceptable. Okay, okay. Jazakallah khair. Yeah.
The general masses of Muslims, the people who are like laymen, they shouldn't really be dividing, because if you think about it, their Islam is basically 5 pillars of Islam and 6 articles of faith. And if they don't know more than that, then there shouldn't really be any division amongst them. But if certain sects are trying to cause them to go beyond what they know, then that would cause division. But division, I think, is acceptable amongst people who have knowledge, because they want to differentiate themselves from people who are upon misguidance.
Okay. Jayed. Jazakallah khair.
Yeah. Assalamu alaikum. I want to say that I don't think it's a question of should there be an instance of having a sect, because as the hadith says that there will be 73, so we can't avoid that. And if there ever was an instance, it's because we can differentiate between what's right and what's wrong. Like that first time we had the Khawarij, and their beliefs were totally different. So to divide ourselves from that, I think is the only acceptable one.
Okay, but do you think maybe people might use that as an excuse then? They'll say, well, Islam's going to be 73 sects anyway, so I'm just going to make my own group or my own sect.
No, but that's in terms of what they actually believe themselves, because that's when they don't go according to the Quran and Sunnah, and when they don't agree with that, then that's, I think, how the sects come about.
Okay, okay. Jazakallah khair.
Assalamu alaikum. Basically, I think that there is some point at which sectarianism is...
Can you stand up and speak with the mic? Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Just come a bit closer.
Basically, I think that there is some point to which sectarianism should be tolerated. Like, you should form a sect can be formed, and I think this is because the Prophet said that every innovation is a misguidance, and every misguidance leads to hellfire. And the Prophet also said that Man amila amalan laysa alayhi amruna fahuwa rad. So whoever makes an action, who does an action that we haven't ordained, will have his action rejected. But that's his action being rejected. It is between him and Allah though. But I think that depending on the severity of what he's done in terms of religion, should depend on whether we should separate ourselves from him or not. For example, in the time of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu's Khilafah, when they had the zakah, when they established, the people said we're not going to pay the zakah for them no more. Then Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he waged war against those people, and he forced out of them, because I think that this is one of the farad, this is something established in the religion. But when it comes to issues like fiqh, the four madhabs, they did differ and they did argue when it came to fiqh, but when it came to aqidah, then they were all the same. I think in the aqidah we shouldn't have any differences and disputes in this area, and that's my opinion. Allah knows best.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. Jazakallah khair. Anybody else? Yeah, can you come forward, Akhi? Do you want to pass the mic on to that brother?
Okay, what I was going to say is, first of all, I don't think there should be division or anything like that when it comes to something clear-cut like the ayat in the Quran that are clear-cut, and something that goes straight against the Quran, the Sunnah, and the understanding of the Sahaba and the consensus of the ulama. But when something's, as he said before, something like fiqh, when there's different ijtihad by the ulama, then I think it's acceptable, because there's different ways to interpret the ayat which are not so clear-cut. So then it's acceptable, but then you don't form another sect about it. It's just a difference of opinion. It's not a sectarian thing. I don't think it's I don't think it's right to form a new sect or anything like that. But just as I said, it shouldn't be something where you go against clear-cut Quran and the Sunnah, but only when something is vague or it's not as clear-cut in the Quran that you can have differences of opinion.
Okay, so can I ask you a question then?
Oh, well, yeah, okay.
Say, for example, the former dhahib, would you consider those to be sects?
No.
Okay. Okay, Jayed. Jazakallah khair. Anybody else?
I think the only time
a group of Muslims should be categorized is when the difference between what's the truth and falsehood, the lines start to become blurred within that, because we know the falsehood will spread like a disease, so we have to be aware and know what is the correct understanding from what isn't. So brothers, some people have this unity, there's no doubt that unity is promoted, and it's the best thing, but when the lines start to become blurred and there's a risk of what's the truth, then unity should be put aside, and establishing the truth should come first. So people have brother, it's love, it's this, like some kind of hippie vibe, but the point being that the truth comes first before any unity. So what are we going to unite on? We're going to unite on truth, or are we just going to unite on the idea that we should be unified, but there's nothing behind that? And when that happens, and a lot of confusion between people will start to occur, and the damages of that over time, like any innovation, they go from something so little, and the extremes just go further and further and further. So if you can categorize it and identify it from the start, then people are going to be aware of it, and we'll know what's correct and from what isn't.
Okay, Jade, Jazakallah khair.
Okay, so do you know, with all this in mind about trying to remain on the truth and what is known to be part from the Quran and Sunnah, another thing that we need to keep in mind is that the vast majority of people who follow what other people might consider incorrect are just doing it just because that's all they've known as Islam. So for example, as an example, like certain people who just say celebrate the Mawlid, for example, like most people, I'm assuming most people here would just agree that it's not the right thing to do, but the majority of people who celebrate it would say that this is what is the truth. So it's like, if we're going to say that, like, when something is clear cut, it's clear cut to us, but to the majority of people it's like it's a vague thing. So is it like where exactly do we draw the line, and how far do we go about, what is it called again? When we say that we're not going to disunite with people, how far do we go with that? So that's something to think about.
I think that having sects here in matters of Aqeedah and Tawheed is just a way of being nice, sort of, because if we said, okay, we're not going to tolerate any differences in Aqeedah, and if there is a difference in Aqeedah and these people have a difference in Aqeedah, then what are we going to say? What are they? Then we have to end up saying, oh, they're not Muslim, and that's a bit harsh, I suppose. So it's just probably a way of tolerating what they're saying, but just saying, let them have their way, but we won't do takfir.
Okay, so it can cause you basically to do takfir of an individual or a certain group. Okay.
And we should distance ourselves from someone according to how close they are to the truth, how close they are to the Quran and Sunnah. And I think it's called Wara and Bara. That on the one side of the scale you got people that are committing shirk, that are kuffars like Hindus, Sikhism, Buddhism, and then you got the people of the book like Jews and Christian. And then in Islam, when you got on one side of the scale the Shias, and then you just look at how close they are to and that's how you distance yourself from them in worship, but not in, like, I don't know, handling business or something like that. Obviously that's a part of life, but
okay, Jazakallah khair.
Just on the point of uniting upon truth, it's not necessary, because you're assuming that every Muslim has to be homogeneous before they can work together. But the term unity can just refer to the fact that you're not going to swear at each other, you're not going to kill each other, you're not going to attack each other. And you can unite on that without compromising your beliefs. You're not accepting their beliefs, but you're not compromising your own. And I think when the Prophet ﷺ could even make peace treaties with Jews in Medina, I think we can make a potential peace treaty with other sects that we may dislike. So I think the point of unity isn't that you lower your standard to theirs, but you keep your standards the same, but you don't attack each other. You have a united front, regardless of your beliefs.
So you don't compromise your beliefs, basically?
No, you don't have to compromise yours, they don't have to compromise theirs. But for the sake of the security of the Ummah, for example, Muslims are being attacked in the media. Now you have certain sects saying, this sect's being demonized, that's good for us. That's not helping anyone. And in fact, once
the first sect is out the way, that sect's next. There's a story of the 4 bulls, the 3 black ones and the 1 white one.
Yeah.
So the 3 black bulls, the 4 bulls together used to protect each other from wolves, but the 3 black bulls decided one day that the white bull was the reason the wolves kept coming after them, because they were easily seen at night. So they decided to let the white bull get killed. So they let the white bull get killed, and then after they realized that the wolves could easily hunt them down. So once the white bull was dead, 1 black bull died, the next day the other black bull died, and there's 1 bull left. And whilst it was being eaten, it said that I died the day the white bull died.
إنما أكلت يوم أكل الثور الأبيض. Yes, famous story.
Yeah, so sectarian issues don't necessarily mean we can't unite.
Yeah. And also because I think, you know, obviously when you're united, you're stronger. And the more sectarianism there is, the more divisions there are, the weaker you become. This is why they say divide and conquer, don't they? You know, divide and conquer, because if everyone's quarreling with one another, then everyone kind of wants their group to be better than everyone else, more powerful, stronger, and they don't want good for any other group. Okay, Jazakallah khair.
Assalamu alaikum. I think there shouldn't be divisions and like difference of opinions with regards to something being halal and haram. For example, music is haram, and there shouldn't be people like coming out saying, you know, it's permissible. Like in the Quran, it says, you know, we're not allowed to eat pork meat. Like people shouldn't say, you know, like, okay, in some places like
pork meat's alright, man. It's alright. Go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, they shouldn't say that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. Sisters, anything new from anything else from the sisters? Anything else? No. Okay. Anyone else from the brothers?
Assalamu alaikum. Apologize for my English. I think division is not good for in Islam. If you want to be strong, if you know some Muslim do bad thing, we need to because we know, like Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam say, if you not follow my Sunnah, you're not in my community. I think if you know some Muslim do a bad thing, or you do like a bid'ah, of some Muslim go in other place, he do the tawaf, or some Muslim do a maulid. We need to go with this Muslim and do the dawah, because this Muslim he do this thing. He think if you did this, he it's good for her deen. If we include division in Islam, we never strong. We lose your power, because kuffar like if Muslim like a division. I'm sorry, I try to explain in English, but it's
so basically you shouldn't abandon them.
Yeah,
you shouldn't abandon them, but you should try to keep
because if you know some Muslim does bad thing, you don't do these things, but come to his brother and say you do not do this one, and you try to explain. That's why he maybe inshallah he understand and he come to Sunnah.
So you try to advise him. Okay, good. Jazakallah khair. Anybody else? Yeah. Just pass the mic forward. Just pass the mic that way.
I said earlier that the division should be, there should be a point where you do divide yourself, but I forgot to mention that the division should be done like with wisdom. That just because you differ in your opinions and you differ in your beliefs, that doesn't mean you have a hatred towards the person. I know it's a bit of a Christian saying, but they say like hate the sinner, not the sin. I think that's the kind of approach you should take towards it, because the Prophet he did say that the Ummah will split into 73 sects. But he said the Muslim Ummah will split into 73 sects. So the people who do split into sects, they are still Muslim. They will go to hell, but that's just for the expiation of their sins. And so if they're Muslims, surely we should treat them like Muslims. And the Prophet said that the Prophet was he had rahmah between the people, and he was strict, and he was ashiddau ala al-kuffar, ruhamai bainahum. So we should still be soft and gentle towards the people, and we should always call them, because initially when the Khawarij first appeared, one of the Sahaba went and gave da'wah to them first, and I think da'wah is the biggest key here, to propagate the message, the true message. So the first Sahabi, he did go and he did give da'wah, and a lot of them turned away from their deviant beliefs. So I think that it is you can differentiate and you can segregate, but you should do so with wisdom and with compassion, and for the love of the deen, and not for arrogance or to display that you're better or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, I think because sometimes we tend to put them at the same level as non-Muslims sometimes. Just because they're from a different group, it's like we totally abandon them. So sometimes you do see that. Okay, anybody else? Okay, good. So, inshallah, what we'll do is we'll carry on to question number 3. Question number 3, are there any instances where division should take priority over unity? Are there any instances where division should take priority over unity? So I'll give you 5 minutes for that, inshallah, and then we'll see what you have. Question number 3, are there any instances where division should take priority over unity? So inshallah, with this, if the sisters can, if they have anything to say about this question.
We thought of an instance where if some people start to go away from Tawheed and start to do shirk, that's an instance where we can't really associate ourselves with them, because that's a sin that Allah will never forgive. So that's when we think that division will take place. Also, if some people are still doing bid'ah and they're not listening to what we're saying to them or what the scholars are saying, we should try and separate ourselves from them. But at the end of the day, we can't judge them, only Allah can judge them, so we should still try and stay united, but let them get on with what they think is right. But I think the main thing is the shirk thing that we were talking about.
Okay, so there's a clipboard there for you sisters, so if you can just put your details on there, inshallah. Brothers, are there any instances where division should take priority over unity? No. Okay. Short and sweet.
I think in some matters of the deen you can't unite on. For example, if you say, "Oh, let's unite on Aqidah with them," and then you say, "Let's take your Aqidah, we'll take our Aqidah, we'll mix it up, and then we'll teach everyone that." We can't compromise on that. We can't compromise on Dawah, because we say, "All right, you come and call people to Islam as well," and then if they are misguidance, then it's like someone opening the door, coming in, and I'm jumping out the back door, sort of things. So there's no point.
Okay.
You can't. I don't think you can, because if you look at the Shias, then they say stuff about the Sahaba, and you can't. How can you compromise and stuff like that? And they also do. They say stuff for shirk. They say Ya Ali, so it's difficult to unify on such matters like that. So I think that is acceptable then, to make it division.
Okay. The brother at the end.
And there are some things that we should unite. For example, and the propaganda that's going on the media, like the brother already mentioned, in that we should unite, even though it's a Shia. For example, now in Germany, and there are Muslims, most Salafi Muslims, that have a da'wah stand, and usually the EDL version of in Germany, they usually protest in front of them, and amongst them are some people that are Shia, and so in that case they actually united with them against us, so, and that would cause us more harm. So in that sense we should unite, even though they're Shia. We're not taking their beliefs, we're not agreeing with them, we're just taking the lesser harm in that sense.
Okay. Jade, yeah.
Okay, yeah, basically, like, although ideally we'd want, what is it called again, everyone to have the same understanding.
You said no before.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just explaining my no.
God.
Ideally, like, we'd want like everyone to be on the same aqidah, the same understanding, and all that kind of stuff. But if we look at the society which we live in today, like every other person has like their own opinion. So, and it's like the idea of like people's opinions are taken so seriously. It's like we just have to like sometimes overlook it, because like, even if we might think that this person is, what is it called again, like his aqeed is completely messed up and he's he's left the fold of Islam because of the stuff that he believes in, that like there's so much stuff happening to us, like we like the saying goes, like we've got bigger fish to fry, so we like it's, for example, like, we're constantly being attacked in the media. Okay, then, like, for example, like recently, some brothers, they booked out Legoland and they were attacked in the Daily Mail about this kind of thing. And the article that was written was just disgusting. But then some of the people who like disagreed with them just started mocking them and saying, "Oh, look, this group got mocked. Let's leave them. But the reality is that this isn't just this is attacking all Muslims. Like the non-Muslims, they don't care whether or not like they're attacking Salafi, Shia, Sufi. They don't care who they're attacking. They'll attack everyone. So it's like if we're busy fighting each other, then we can never truly respond to the attacks that we're getting from the outside.
But we're talking about where division should take priority, over unity.
Because everyone's saying that as long as it's within the aqidah and all that kind of stuff, then divide. But it's like not really. No, because in the society which we live in, like ideally, yeah, but in the society which we live in, no. That's basically what I mean.
I think that the terms divide and unify are have been loosely defined, and I don't think the definition of them is quite clear. And for that reason, I think we're all kind of talking on different levels of unity and division. Because if you were to look at the case of Ali and Muawiyah, they both differed severely, which led them to war. It led them to be at each other's throats. But when the king asked Muawiyah or Ali, I can't remember which one, whether I should come and help you to kill the other one, he rejected the help, and he says, if you even mention that to me again, I'll bring an army that starts with me and ends with you, and I'll gift your head to Ali. So it's an issue of wala wal bara, so having love and hate for the sake of Allah. And between them there was a difference, and it did cause them to differ, but ultimately, because they were Muslim, ultimately it was unity. And I think the definitions are not stringent enough, and if we were to focus on what is unity and what is difference, I think eventually we'll be able to narrow it down.
Yeah, I think what's important as well is to look at, with regards to, issues that we are dealing with. You've got Islamic issues, for example, a person's aqidah with regards to prayer, with regards to salah, with regards to other issues, and then you have mu'amalat, worldly issues, like buying and selling and things like this. So the scholars, they say, when it comes to issues relating to Islam, Islamic issues, then the basic principle is that everything is forbidden. Nothing is allowed, everything is forbidden, except that which Allah has mentioned or He's made halal, and that which the Messenger of Allah ﷺ has allowed. So even, for example, in salah, for example, if somebody was to make something new, pray in a different way, that's something we can't really accept, because the foundations and the principles with regards to salah, with regards to acts of worship, that's been defined for us in Islam, in the Quran and in the Sunnah. So if somebody came, for example, to the Masjid, and he started doing circuits up and down the Masjid, and you look at him and say, "What are you doing?" And he says, "I'm praying." Can't you say, "I'm praying, man, leave me alone"? Yeah, then you can't, this isn't something which is acceptable, because worship has been defined for us already. We already know the ways in which we're supposed to worship Allah Azza wa Jal. With regards to other things which are worldly things, buying and selling and anything else that isn't specific to do with acts of worship, then the principle is everything is allowed unless it's been made forbidden. So it's the opposite. Everything's been made allowed except for whatever's been forbidden by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger alayhi salatu wassalam. Okay. Anybody else? The sisters? Anything else? Okay. So question number 4. Interesting question now. Would it be considered acceptable to firstly take from a knowledgeable individual of another sect
Secondly, pray in a mosque or follow an organization that follows a different methodology. And thirdly, marry someone from another sect. So you got 5 minutes, inshallah. Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So, question 4. Would it be considered acceptable to firstly take from a knowledgeable individual of another sect, 2, pray in a mosque or follow an organization that follows a different methodology, and 3, marry someone from another sect? So the sisters, if they can go first, inshallah.
For the first one, we're saying we wouldn't take information from a knowledgeable individual of another sect. We'd listen to them because we don't want to make them feel inferior or anything. So we'd listen to them, but we'd be strong about our own beliefs, because you wouldn't know what they're saying to you if it's right or wrong. And because they're very knowledgeable, they might even make you doubt about your own. So you should just stay strong with your own beliefs, but just listen to them. And for the second one about praying in a mosque, it just depends on the circumstance. So for example, if your salah is going qada, then you would go in and you'd pray and then come out, so you wouldn't pray with them. That's what we think, that you should pray individually and you'd come out, but you wouldn't do it out of choice, go to another sect mosque out of choice. You do it if it depends on the circumstance. For the third one, marrying someone from another sect, we said no, because that would cause limitations on what they do, because they have differences in opinions and everything. And also the kids as well. Like, how would you teach the kids? Because both the mom and dad have different views and beliefs, so that would just confuse the kids as well. So we think no for that.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. Brothers? Yeah.
Okay, I'm only going to answer, the first one. What was it? Yeah, taking knowledge from someone from another sect, even if they're knowledgeable. It's not a definite yes, and it's not a definite no either, because it depends on who's taking the knowledge. For example, if it's a person who's able to distinguish the right from the wrong, then it's good taking the knowledge of the person, because you're gaining a knowledge. You never know what they might improve in you. But if it's a person that is a layman, he doesn't understand what he's doing, the knowledge that this knowledgeable person might give them is like the poison mixed with the honey. Because a lot of the things that he's saying is right, but then he'll mix in falsehood there. So then the person won't necessarily know what is right and wrong, and he might be swayed in a different direction. So it's not generally advised for a layman to take knowledge from someone from another sect. But if the person he understands Islam, he has a grounding in Aqidah, etc., then it's okay, because he'll be able to distinguish the right from the wrong.
Okay, Jazakallah khair.
I think for the first one, I think most likely no, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hasn't given us like this is right, this is wrong. We can't tell which is right, which is wrong. Because I remember I went down to my local mosque thinking I know what's right, what's wrong, and whatever they say I'll be able to filter it out. But only 1 year afterwards that I realized what they were teaching me was completely wrong. And for the second one, I think that I don't have a right to speak in such matters, and that this should be referred to. Talking about who you should pray behind and which mosque you're allowed to go to, that should be referred to scholars rather than your own opinion. And organizations would depend on if it's necessity, if you must, but it's better to stay within your own organization. And marrying someone would just be your personal choice. If you can bear the fact that they're from another sect every day of your life, then I don't know.
Okay.
So, I think for the first one, I don't think it should be acceptable for you to. Well, if a person can identify his sect, he understands that the sect he's on, I think he has knowledgeable people in his own sect to follow, so there isn't a need for him to go, like, if it's unavoidably, like you just heard it, I think that's not avoidable. But if you're making an effort to listen to people, knowledgeable people from other sects, then I don't think that's advised, because you have knowledgeable people from yours, you should be making the effort to listen to them, because they're telling you what's right. I think for the second one, if you're praying in a masjid, as long as you're not taking in their dawah, and it's a case of necessity. So if it's a namaz you can't miss, I think you'd have to, but as long as you're avoiding their dawah, you shouldn't be trying to make an effort to obtain their dawah and stuff, and it's a case of necessity. And for the third one, it's if you're able to marry someone who's part of your sect, then you should, but if you can't just spend your life unmarried saying, I could have found someone from my sect. And if you're allowed to marry someone who's from the people of the book, I think you can make an exception for someone who's a Muslim.
I think for the first question, it's important to think about what exactly has this sect done, how far has it gone wrong. So for example, some groups have minor issues in aqidah and that kind of stuff, but other groups it's what is it called again, it's clear cut shirk and that kind of stuff. So that's something to obviously watch out for, because some people, they just label certain groups, for example, there might be one opinion within one group that is incorrect, and people label that entire group as that incorrect belief. So it's important to first of all understand, so if the majority of that group and the work that they're doing is correct, then it shouldn't be too much of a problem. Also, another thing is that most of the sects that are what is it called again, that are not upon the truth, they're very, very responsive. They don't exist on their own. The only thing that they talk about is, what is it called again, why they think is alright. So for example, one of the groups out there, one brother was trying to tell me, listen to the speaker, listen to the speaker. I was like, there's no need to. He doesn't talk about anything beneficial. He says, all he talks about is when how Salafis attack us, and that point was, what is it called again, people attack them and they're very responsive. And that's the thing with a lot of people who preach what's incorrect. It's just they're very responsive. They're not very proactive, and they don't really solve issues. They just respond to what people tell them. So if we give them attention by saying that this is wrong and this is wrong, then obviously they're just going to keep pouring more and more of the da'wah. So it's a bigger discussion, but this is just the beginning of it. So
okay, Jazakallah khair.
Yeah, and I was just going to answer the first question. In that one, I would more say you should be neutral, because if the individual that is giving you the knowledge from another sect is more knowledgeable than you, there is the possibility that it tells you something that is true, and because the fact that he's from another sect, and you just say no, I don't think that's the truth, and he was actually telling the truth, you actually denied the truth. So just to avoid that situation, you should be neutral at that moment, and then from that moment you should go and seek the truth. From that, depending on what subject he was talking about. For example, when the Prophet ﷺ said, and when the shaitan came as a human form to Abu Hurairah, and he gave him the advice, and the Prophet ﷺ said, even though he's a liar, he told the truth. So in that sense, you should be neutral at that second when he tells you something, it could be true, so that you don't deny the truth. Even for a second, you just say, okay, and then you just get the...
Okay, Jazakallah khair.
On the first one, I think it depends, because you have some people, for example, a person who knows the Quran really well, and you have, say, if he's the only person in the city that has that level of knowledge of the Quran, then I think, as long as he doesn't add any of his deviancy in it, then it will be okay. But if you have people who are more knowledgeable and you have them available, then I wouldn't see any reason why you'd go to him, because you wouldn't want to take the risk. Also, if you look at ulama like Imam al-Shafi'i, he had a teacher, I think it was Imam Shafi'i, he had a teacher that people considered as deviant, but he respected his shaykh, he learned from him still. So I think it depends, you have to take a balance in it.
So coming to the first part of the question about knowledge, I mean, in my personal view is that it's okay to take it, to receive it, but it doesn't mean you have to accept it. You can absorb that information, take on. If it makes sense to you, then follow up, chase it up. Who said it is right? Just make sure what they are saying, you'll find out more information about it. I guess my brother there was saying that this religion is knowledge, so it's your, what did he say? So be careful from who you take it from. And that's why I leave that point to. Second point, praying in another mosque or following another organization. I mean, in our little group we spoke about that, and we said it's okay to pray, but if they believe in something which is different, they're praying to someone else apart from Allah, then that's something which is not acceptable. Third person marrying someone from another sect. I mean, I'm not personally married, but I mean, I guess you find it hard to fall in love with a certain person. You can't just pick and choose. So marrying someone from another sect, you need to think about whether you're compatible. I mean, your kids, if you can raise them up, educate them. Because if you're confused, your kids are going to be confused.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. Anyone else?
I think for the first one, if you want to learn your deen correctly, do not take your deen from any sect. Because if you're a beginner, you don't know anything, and your teacher, you know more than you. So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do not protect you, you can follow his way. So I think if you want to learn your deen correctly, take your deen from a person who follows the good way, and inshallah you be learned correctly. And for the second question, if you don't know this masjid, because some sect when he pray, he do some shirk. So I think you need to be careful and go to good masjid. And for if it's good to marry a woman another sect, I think if you want to good marry, do not marry a Muslim another sect, because you don't know. The sister is supposed to be follow I don't know in English a man, but you don't know if you marry this sister, if you cannot sure is follow you, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Allah is I don't know in English is if you want to give the good right to any person, you cannot sure if you marry the woman another sect, he follow you, so it's dangerous. So I think you need to marry a Muslim, he follows Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's good for you. I apologize for my English, brother.
No problem. Okay, we'll take one more. Anyone from the sisters? Anyone? Anything else? Okay. So one more from the brothers, inshallah, and then we'll carry on.
I think it's all good and well if we stand there and we say that yes, as in I'm only going to answer the first question, taking knowledge from other sects. It's easy to say that we're going to come there with an objective mentality, we're just going to take information and we're going to leave unscathed or untouched by that information. The Prophet said that there's some speeches from magic, and what is meant is that some people are really influential in their speech, and some people can turn hearts with your speech, and so it's kind of a dangerous thing to let yourself be exposed to that. And I think to take knowledge, you have to take it from the authentic source, and Muslims and Islam in general has taken like a long time, and he's put a lot of effort into preserving the deen and into authenticating the information we have. And like if we suddenly start taking off random people, Joe Blog off the street, and we start taking off deviant sects, then what we're saying is that like Bukhari wasted his time authenticating hadith. If you can take it from random people, I mean, Umar al-Khattab, when the man came, one of the Sahaba, he recited an ayat to him in a different style, one of the different styles. Umar al-Khattab grabbed him and he took him to the Prophet ﷺ, and the hikmah of this is that he took him to a place where he can authenticate the information. And the Prophet ﷺ said that you're right, it was revealed in this way, and you're right, it was revealed in both ways. But the point is that we should always have authentic information, and we shouldn't be taking our information from random places.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. So I think, as the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, he said, "Alaykum bi sunnati wa sunnatul khulafa ar-rashidin min ba'di." That take from my sunnah, from my traditions, and the traditions of the rightly guided khulafa after me. So whenever someone takes knowledge from somebody else, it's very important that that individual
is taking the information from authentic sources, from the Quran and from the Sunnah of the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam. Okay, and ideally, okay, you want to learn from someone who's, got this knowledge and he has authentic knowledge. Okay, there might be instances out of necessity when there's nobody else around where a person may be able to study, for example, a specific science like Arabic, for example. He wants to study Arabic. Okay, so he can go to someone who he might not be from the same sect as him, but the goal and the objective is a lot higher, to understand the Quran. Okay, or for example, if he wants to learn Quran itself, tajweed of the Quran, learn how to read Quran properly. In cases of necessity, when there's nobody else around, there's no one, for example, from the Salaf or from someone who is reliable, or somebody that from his local area, from his group, from his sect, who he can learn from. In this case, okay, an exception can be made, but ideally, okay, a person should be taking from those people, okay, who have the knowledge and they've taken from authentic places. With regards to praying in a place where you're not sure of, it's a different organization, they practice different methodology, then you have to look at the individual who's leading the prayer. Say, for example, a person can't go into a masjid and say, I'm not going to pray behind this individual because, okay, he does some shirk. Unless you know for a fact that individual who's praying in that masjid, you know for a fact that that person is committing an act of shirk. In that case, then you can stay away. Then you can't pray with that person because he's committing an act of shirk. But you can't, just because it's in a specific area, a specific masjid or a specific organization, you can't say, for example, that individual who's praying, I'm not going to pray behind him because I'm not too sure, that guy seems a bit dodgy, or this place is a bit weird, this masjid is a bit funny, or this organization's got some weird views, so I'm not going to pray behind that person. Because now you're falling into the trap of having su'ul dhan of a specific individual. You're having bad thoughts of a specific individual. Okay. Also, sometimes what happens in this situation is you don't know that individual, and you end up trying to find faults about that individual. Okay, and that can lead to something more negative. You might end up talking bad about that individual, because you're finding faults about that individual. You don't know anything about him, so you're trying to find faults, find out what's wrong with him. Is there anything wrong with him? What are people saying about him? So it's a very fine line. You have to be very careful that you don't fall into that trap. And also with regards to marrying, as the sister mentioned, marrying someone from another sect, then you have to look at your future. As the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, that I will be proud of my ummah because there will be the most people on the Day of Judgment. And that's the aim when a person gets married, to have children. And you have to think about what kind of effect that's going to have on you as an individual. It can influence you. It can have an effect on you if you marry the wrong person. And it can have an effect on your children. How are they going to grow up? Because they're your responsibility. As the Messenger of Allah said, that كُلُّكُمْ رَاعٍ وَكُلُّكُمْ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ, that you're all shepherds and you're all responsible for your flock. So you're going to be responsible for the children that you bring up, how you bring them up, in what manner you're going to bring them up. Okay, so inshallah we'll move on to the next question, question number 5. With the state of the Muslim Ummah as it is, should we put aside our differences and focus on cooperation between the various sects? And if so, where would we draw the line? So I'll give you about 5 minutes for this, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. Inshallah. So question number 5 and number 6 we're going to do together. So with the sisters, question number 5. With the state of the Muslim Ummah as it is, should we put aside our differences and focus on cooperation between the various sects? And if so, where would we draw the line?
We think that we should put our differences aside and focus on cooperating with each other no matter what our sects are, because at the end of the day the Prophet ﷺ said that when one part of the ummah is hurt, the rest of us are hurt. So we should all unite together and try and help the people. For example, in Syria, what's happening right now, it doesn't matter what sect they are, we'll still help them. We won't let them suffer by themselves. But where we should draw the line is when people start to bring their own beliefs and wrong practices involved, because we wouldn't want to divide based on that. So we'd carry on helping each other, like with charity organisations and things, but we shouldn't bring our own beliefs into it, because that's when we'll draw the line. And for number 6,
So as Muslims, are we under an obligation to argue, debate with those with different beliefs, or is it better to get on with our own lives?
We think that we shouldn't debate, but we should listen to each other. So we shouldn't debate about it, but we should, if we do talk to each other about it, we should always refer to the Quran and Sunnah, not bring our own opinions into it. But we shouldn't debate about it, because at the end of the day, who are we to judge? Only Allah knows, because at the end of the day, there will be 73 sects, and we don't know whose is right. We don't know if ours is right or if theirs is right.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. Okay, so we'll take a few from the brothers, inshallah. Go ahead.
Okay, you said, is it, to argue and debate, but then I don't think you should argue and debate anyway. It should be more along the lines of advising each other and working together to actually find out the right answer, because no one goes into a debate with the mindset of, I'm going to lose, I'm going to accept the other person. No, because no one, as soon as you put a doubt in their mind, they'll just go and find a counter refutation or something. So arguing and debating isn't the great thing, but advising each other as Muslims and have, like, the sincerity should be there. So I don't necessarily agree with the arguing and the debating, but it should be more along the lines of advising.
I think it depends. Speak. I do have to talk to this. I think it depends on the manner of the circumstances. So, for example, if you're working together in terms of poverty, you can join, obviously, non-Muslim organizations. You all are looking at the same cause. But when you're dealing with issues like Aqidah and things which are called Islamic differences, I think a lot of people need to come together and resolve these issues from certain organizations. The people in charge need to sit down and actually explain these issues. This is, I think, where a lot of people are. There's not much of a connection. A specific example is where I live in Warsaw. There's deviants everywhere, everywhere, and there's nobody to come to these specific organizations to help combat these issues. A lot of people that go to these organizations think that they're in the right place. Everybody's looking at following the right way. We're all one. But if you look deeper inside these issues, a lot of them tend to differentiate to what is actually the Quran and Sunnah.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. One more. Adam, last but not least.
Answering the first question, I think what's important to consider is like the beginning of the question with the state of the Ummah as it is, because although we can say that, we're going to be harsh and we're going to say no to all these people and these guys are deviant and all this, that and the other, we need to consider the reality which we're in. So for example, although this generally seems like something which is quite vague, a medium which to bring it more real and for it to be more applicable is like the issue of media. And if you think about it in that sense, and when the media is attacking Islam and it's like demonizing Muslims, it comes to it from generally from the extreme points of view. So for example, when all these groups are calling to Khilafah and this, that and the other, the media attacks those groups first, and then when the rest of the Muslim community demonizes them and says these are not part of us, the media sees that as legitimate to demonize these people, and slowly they start pulling off chunks of the Muslim Ummah. So although we might think that the people who are calling for Khilafah in the UK are completely wrong, it's later on what happens is, like how the brother was saying, the whole story of the wolves and the sheep and that stuff. Okay, then for example, right now Qadianis, they believe that women lead salah and that kind of stuff. If we need to be more realistic in the times in which we live and come up with better solutions rather than just saying, just this group's deviant, don't work with them, this, that and the other. So we need to come up with more nuanced ideas rather than just saying no to people.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. So Jazakallah khair for all your feedback. So with regards to question 5, with the state of the Muslim Ummah as it is, should we put aside our differences and focus on cooperation between the various sects? You have to look at what exactly we're going to cooperate on. So for example, if it's an issue that all the Muslims are going to be suffering from, it's an issue that all the Muslims are going to have a problem with, something that affects all of the Muslims in the UK, for example. Okay, for example, like what? For example, halal meat, zabiha meat. For example, riba, Sharia compliant, banks and financial issues, which affects everyone. For example, nikah and divorce. Having the Islamic, what do they call it, Islamic Judiciary Board, an Islamic board where a person can get married. And these are issues which every single Muslim is going to be dealing with. Every Muslim is going to be affected by these things, regardless of what group you're from, what kind of sect you're from. And even social issues, as the brother mentioned, things to do with drugs, things to do with alcohol. We can even work with non-Muslims, with these things, because it affects everyone, not just Muslims, but it also affects non-Muslims. The things you can't, work together and cooperate on are things, for example, which have been invented into the deen, or things which affect a person's aqidah. Okay, for example, when the Milad thing happened, okay, they were doing, they blocked off the roads and they were doing marches down Green Lane and Coventry Road, and they were singing and they had like loudspeakers on and things like this. It's not a part of a person's faith aslan. This isn't something which is something which has been created, and it's a bid'ah of Islam to do things like this. So it's not something that you can actually cooperate in, because it goes against your own beliefs as a Muslim. It's something which goes against that. Another thing to think about with regards to cooperation is that people, especially non-Muslims, they don't want this. They don't want Muslims to work together, okay? Because they know, if people work together, they're stronger. So they try to create differences. I'll give you a good example of this. The Legoland thing that happened. You know about the Legoland thing. So the Legoland thing, Daily Mail, they did this thing about Legoland and about how, there's going to be terrorists there and they're hiring terrorists. And it was a very really bad article that the guy wrote, Little John or something like this. He wrote this article about that. So people complained, okay, and all the Muslims, okay, especially on social media, they started to get together to talk about, to criticize what this article was talking about. So then the Daily Mail made another article, okay, where they talked about the haram knocking down the house of the Prophet ﷺ. Okay, who heard about this? Anybody know about this? So they mentioned this article, they wrote this article in the Daily Mail after the first article that they wrote about Legoland. Okay, now the idea behind it, okay, it was very clear. The idea behind it was that they wanted the Muslims to kind of, disagree with one another. Hang on, these Wahhabis and these people, they're knocking down the Masjid, and look how bad they are, look how terrible they are. They're knocking down the old structures and the house of the Prophet ﷺ and so on and so forth. So they wanted the Muslims to start differing and disputing amongst one another. Okay, so they used these tactics, but this is a typical situation of where, this was being done for the betterment of the Muslims. And with regards to Muslims coming together for social events, things like this. So a person has to be aware. You have to be aware of how the media is being used to try to divide the Muslims. Sometimes you have TV shows, okay, where it's just aimed at Muslims. You have TV shows aimed at Muslims. For example, undercover mosques. Who remembers undercover mosques from a long time ago? Okay, I know a brother who, I was talking to a brother, he was a revert, okay, and he was saying, I was talking to him about it, and I said to him, did your parents see it? Because his parents weren't Muslim. And he said, no, he goes, they're not interested. He goes, they don't care what kind of group you're from. If you're a Muslim, you're messed up, doesn't matter. They don't want to know you're a terrorist. So the point is, okay, some of these TV shows, they're aimed at Muslims. They're aimed at the Muslims. They want the Muslims to watch them. They're aimed at the non-Muslims. The non-Muslims don't care. So some of these things a person has to be aware, they're aimed at Muslims. Even some articles that you'll read. Articles you read on websites, on news sites, they're aimed at Muslims for Muslims to read them. I'll give you an example, okay. There was an article about this Saudi prince who hired out the whole of Disneyland. He hired out the whole of Disneyland, okay, and he invited all his friends and, his workers and whoever they were to come and enjoy themselves at this event, okay. Now, I know Muslims who when they read this article, they said, look how messed up this is, man. This guy's got so much money, this Saudi guy's filthy rich, okay, and he's taking out the whole Disneyland for the whole day and he's wasting his money, and look how messed up it is. And I thought to myself, if this was a non-Muslim, if a non-Muslim had done this instead, okay, a European millionaire decides to book out the whole of Disneyland for his family and for his friends, us as Muslims, we wouldn't even see it as a bad thing. We think, whoa, look at that, this guy's got so much money, mashallah, and he's rented out the whole of Disneyland for the whole day, and his friends are coming, that's quite nice, it's a nice gesture to do. But because he's a Muslim,
Okay, we as Muslims, instead of having husnul dhan, having good thoughts of our Muslim brother, we start to go against and we start to attack that individual. Even though he's a Muslim, he has more rights than a non-Muslim. Okay, so it's very important for a person to really be aware and to be careful when he reads something. Be very, always take a step back and always look at, what the message is with regards to those articles and with regards to, those videos and any news things, any news events that come up. Also, with regards to question 6, I don't think it's a question of arguing or debating. When we talk to someone, it should be a conversation. It shouldn't be an argument or a debate in order to beat that guy down. I know this ayah, I know this hadith, so I'm going to use all this ammunition that I have, okay, to attack this person until he's totally defeated and I've wiped the floor with him with all my adillah. That shouldn't be the goal. Imam Shafi'i, he once said that, I've never debated with another individual except at the bottom of my heart I've hoped that that person was right and I was wrong. The whole point of a person conversing with somebody else, debating with somebody else, is for a person himself to learn, for him to benefit. Because that person might know something that you don't know. That person might have some type of knowledge that you don't know. Okay, so the point isn't to win an argument or win a debate, but rather to have a conversation. And even with regards to etiquettes of debate, and there's ethics and there's etiquettes when a person debates with somebody else. You have certain manners, you have certain morals, you debate a certain way. And even if you debate in a certain way with the correct akhlaq, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Ud'u ila sabil rabbika bil hikmah," call to the way of your Lord with wisdom. وَالْمَوْعِظَةِ الْحَسَنَةِ, and with good conduct. Have good manners when you talk to people. It might be just because of your good manners that person will accept what you have to say. And this is why Bilal Phillips, okay, may Allah preserve him, he once said, I heard an argument when I wasn't someone who knew a lot about the deen. He said, I heard an argument between one Muslim and another Muslim. One of them was becoming, flustered, he was getting angry, his face was red, because he was so angry. He was shouting at the other individual, and that person who was in this state was actually in the right. And the other person who he was arguing with was very calm, very collected, didn't shout, wasn't abusive, wasn't using bad language. He was very well spoken, very soft spoken, even though he was in the wrong. But a person who saw this, and Bilal Phillips himself, he said, when I saw this, I took the side of the calm person, the person who had good akhlaq and good conduct. Because of the way he acted, not because of, the fact that he was right or wrong, but because of the way he behaved, because of the way he acted. So it goes a long way. A person's akhlaq, a person's etiquette goes a long way. So inshallah, I hope that this event has been beneficial now, and I know it's been quite a long session. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He keeps us steadfast upon His faith. Jazakumullah khair. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.